Hi, and welcome to Freedom Fighters Code Gray. This is a show where we discuss human trafficking, an issue that's happening in our community and across Canada. What do climbing mountains and addressing human trafficking have in common? Well, in today's episode, we're going to be discussing this question with two special guests, Judd Lee and Mike Forsey. Thank you both so much for taking the time to join me today.
Yeah. You're welcome.
Just to start off with, can you both take some time to introduce yourselves and share a little bit about the work that you're involved in?
Mike, why don't you start, brother?
My name's Mike Forsey. I'm the Justice Director of Fourth Musketeer Canada. Fourth Musketeer is in 13 plus countries. It's growing all the time, so we don't quite know the exact number. It's probably 15 as of right now, but 13 the last count. We're originally started off as a men's movement to ask men to start engaging in their community and bringing healing and to restore places and relationships that have been broken in the past by men who use their hands to tear down rather than to build. So that's a little bit about Fourth Musketeer.
Cool. Hey, I'm Judd Lee, and I have been involved with Fourth Musketeer now since 2016 when it first showed up in Canada, in Alberta. And since then, one of the things that God put on my heart was to step into something that was tangible for people that are in the front lines of human trafficking work. And the initiative that I would say he dreamed into being through friends of mine was this initiative called Freedom 8848 or 8,848.
So for both of you, when did you first hear about human trafficking? When did you learn that this is an issue that was taking place in our world, and what led you to care about it?
Well, for me, it was during a Fourth Musketeer event, which is called an XCC or Extreme Character Challenge, which I was on with a group of maybe 100 men. And there was a talk during this challenge where every man there was called out. If you are responsible for so much of the injustice in the world, then God wants you to do something about that and to be on the other side of it, because we can't continue to watch the world crumble and do nothing. And after that talk, there was a conversation being had about kind of what happens with traffickers. And this conversation was had with a firefighter. We were splitting wood in front of a campfire. And as I was listening to him have this conversation with another fellow, I just heard the horrors of how they manipulate situations. This is traffickers manipulate situations so that women are then afraid of authority figures, afraid of police, because the traffickers will basically make them distrust authority and do other things that take their ability to trust anyone away. Mm-hmm. And there was more details shared in that moment, but it just caught a hold of me. And I thought, how can this be possible? And how can this continue in our world? And what are we going to do to step into doing something about it?
Thanks, Jed. What about you, Mike? When did you learn about human trafficking and begin to care about this issue?
For me, it goes back to my late teens. I went to Salvation Army Bible School in Winnipeg, Manitoba, where myself and a number of my friends joined a street team that would go on the weekends and even in basically any given night and try to bring hot chocolate, coffee, whatever we could to women stuck in human trafficking in minus 30-degree weather, in mini skirts, no winter's coats, afraid to talk to us, and where we could help them escape if they decided they wanted to. So yeah, very early on in my life, and I've kind of continued engaging in the topic since then. So I would say just shy of 25 years.
So what is this Freedom 8848 that you have spoken about and that you're wearing on your t-shirts today? Where did this name originate from, and what is this group all about?
Well, I think to talk to the origins is really important for us. And so we have to bring up our friend's name, Rem Vlasblom. Now, Rem is currently in Montreal right now on an extreme character challenge as we record. It's the first one in the east of our country, so it's pretty exciting. So Rem and I and Mike had been wrestling with what do we do that is an event that can garner attention to this issue of human trafficking, and doing something about it. So wanting to do something, in Rem's words, that if you're going to tell somebody you're going to do something, they're going to look at you kind of like, you're actually going to do that? And so I guess the backstory to that was Rem and I were doing a bike ride fundraiser, the Ride for Refuge, and raising funds for an organization, Next Step Ministries, to raise funds for them to do their programming. And Rem had confessed to me at the end of our second year doing this that he didn't actually raise any funds. And I was like, well, what do you mean? Like, there's significant money behind your name on the rider board or leaderboard. And he said, yeah, but that was out of pocket. I was too afraid to have conversations about this topic with my family and my friends. I just couldn't do it. And that's not good. And so after he said that to me, I was like, well, it's still good that you raised out of your own pocket. But what he really wanted was something that he was afraid wasn't even possible. He wanted to do something that was so big that it seemed so daunting that it would take everything in his power and in God's power to support him through it, in order to start those conversations. And so through a series of events and a longer timeline, he had this thought about, well, what about climbing the equivalent of Everest, but in 3 days? So wow. Making a real challenge of it, something that seems impossible, but might not be. And so 8848 is 8,848 meters is the metric height of Everest, which is close to 30,000 feet. So it's a pretty substantial mountain, the highest mountain in the world. And so the real kind of raise hair on the back of your neck kind of thing that goes along with Rem's idea that finally kind of came into his mind as he was thinking about it was another friend of ours named Phil Cote was on the receiving end of Rem's first time thinking through this. And he was, I think he was either texting him or calling him, and he said, hey, what are you up to? I have this idea. And as he said that to Phil, Phil said, well, I'm doing a Google search on all the elevations of the mountains in the Rockies to try and come up with the equivalent of Everest without those two talking together.
Wow.
Yeah.
That is so neat. So these individuals have a similar dream, let's do something that will help us to speak courageously about trafficking to our friends and family, but also to help raise funds. How did this go from a dream concept that folks started chatting about to an actual event that took place?
You want me to jump in on that one?
Yeah, Mike, you go ahead.
Yeah, I think for us, for myself, and in the same period as this is all happening, I'm investing in community service work for the Salvation Army here in Calgary, and with a men's shelter and a women's shelter, and seeing a lot firsthand what was happening in Calgary, and but also being fairly new to Alberta, so just moved and wanting to kind of find some brothers. So at the same time, the second ride that Judd's talking about, I jumped on a road bike for the first time, which was definitely a far larger event for me than them, I think, at the time. And and the next day, or the next week or so, we basically met in a riverbed in Cochrane, with a fire going, and Rem and Phil and Judd, myself, our really good friend Sean and Jeremy, and the idea was kind of posed. What if we did this? What would that look like? For myself, having experience in fundraising, and Judd as well, and also building a business, we basically started with what are we going to ask people? Where is it going to be? And picking a date, and we literally used as many individuals as possible to create freedom. We relied on other brothers in Fourth Musketeer, and that's what we call ourselves. So brothers, like Judd's the uncle to my kids. So if you hear that language, that's why we use that. We had other brothers that were web developers that helped with the website. We bought our T-shirts from a company called the Joyful Project that helps ladies escape trafficking in Calcutta, and so they've made these and put the graphics on them for us. So everything has been intentional about supply chain and all those pieces. So it really kind of just started to grow, and there's a number of friends that we have in Cochrane that are mountaineers. It's what they do. They love it, and so the first group. In the first year, due to COVID, it was really tough to really plan well, and not knowing if from a health regulations, if there's going to be 10 allowed or 20 allowed, and so we just really, I think the first go was have friends and family around us, and just started climbing,
Wow.
And that first year we raised over $30,000.
Oh my goodness,
which was quite amazing.
That is amazing. So incredible. And it's been so exciting to hear about both of your journeys, as well as, your friends that have been involved in this as well. And I'm just really looking forward to continuing this discussion to hear more about how this dream came to fruition and what that impact has been to date. But we're going to go to a quick break, and then we'll come back to continue our discussion.
What kind of show do you want to see on Rogers TV? What interests you? Log on to rogerstv.com, fill out a show proposal, and tell us about your segment idea. We want to know what you want to see. Rogers TV, only on Rogers.
We're creating space for change,
progress, equity, reform.
This is a call out, a shout out, a reach out
to help small businesses, charities, and organizations that support equity deserving groups.
Let's promote progress
by promoting your brand.
We're all in. Dedicating our production resources and media platforms
to shine a light on your brand.
Apply now at allinforequity.ca.
Allinforequity.ca.
Hi, Hi, and welcome back to Freedom Fighters Code Gray. In today's episode, I have with me two special guests, Judd and Mike, who are representing Freedom 8848 to talk about how climbing mountains can make an impact on the issue of human trafficking. So Judd and Mike, why don't you just kind of quickly recap what Freedom 8848 is? And then I would love if you could share a bit about what was this Everest summit that you had last summer? What was that event? What took place? Who was there? What was this all about?
Sure. So Freedom 8848 is an initiative of the 4th Musketeer Canada, where a group of people take a huge challenge and they take steps into conversations about human trafficking with all their friends and family members in a fundraising initiative to do something that most people would say is not possible, and that would be to climb the equivalent of Mount Everest, 8,848 meters in 3 days. Now, I do have to say that that's not the only tier of Freedom 8848, because we knew we wanted to make it accessible to people that weren't that crazy, let's say, or that athletic, whatever language you want to use. Crazy.
No, that's fair. That's fair.
So there's 3 tiers. The first one being the full summit of Everest, or 8,848, which turns out to be 3 mountains a day for 3 days straight. So that is the one that ends up being the full challenge that a lot of people are really hungry to go after. The second one is the one actually that Mike and I did this past summer, which is the equivalent of Everest Base Camp, or 5,600 meters, which turns out to be only 2 mountains a day for 3 days straight. And then the last tier, which is still a challenge for a lot of people, is called Mountain Movers, and that would just be 1 mountain a day for 3 days straight. And then all of us as a huge community come in and out of this place that we've established as a base camp and celebrate each night before going to sleep and doing it all over again.
Wow, what determination and athleticism and commitment is needed to do that. I've done some mountain hiking in my past. I can't imagine doing several in one day, let alone multiple days in a row. But I do hope at one time to come out west and participate, because this sounds amazing. So where does this actually take place for people who don't know? And what were some of, the highlights that you experienced from this Everest challenge that you put together in summer 2021?
So it's not technical climbing. So I think that's a really important thing for any of your viewers maybe to hear, is that this is hiking trails. Sure, there's some steep stuff and it's going to be challenging, but this is something that a non-technical climber or non-mountaineer, somebody that's just a hiker, can do. I think that's really important for people to know. And it's all done in the Rocky Mountains and in Kananaskis, which is just outside of Calgary. So it's not a huge drive away from the airport for anyone that was thinking of coming in from Ontario or any of the provinces in our country. And yeah, some experiences that I really stick to in my mind is the snow in August. This event happens in August, and I love when we get to experience a snowstorm in August. And we were
what? I didn't even know that happened in Canada. Why don't I know this?
Well, if you're up high in the mountains, you get some snow, and so that for me really takes the cake, is being able to be up high in the mountains in August and getting snowed on. So I don't know about Mike, what sticks out mostly to you, but
I think I have to hit one piece of we call it our posture with why Everest and what we believe. And we know that human trafficking is a massive issue in our country. And the more we've dug in with our partners and invite them into our lives and our families, our thought is that we can move the mountain of human trafficking one step, one stone at a time. It takes many people to do even their part, just a little part. And I think that's something that I think has been most memorable about when we gather on these weekends is the community aspect, the family aspect. Our kids are there, our wives are there. There are many people who have added to our numbers year over year since we've started, and just the sense of intimacy and ultimately just a belief that it is possible that we can make a difference. And I think ultimately with freedom and the effort that we have, we try to really shy away from calling it an event in itself. The event is public facing to get their attention. But the Freedom 8848 family are invested in our partners all year round, and we're connecting them with other groups in the country. We really say we specialize in being wayfinders. So when we hear someone needing something, hey, I've met that person, go talk to them and connect them and really see them flourish. And ultimately it's, we could be 1 week fixing a fence in one of the Next Step Ministries buildings, or the next week we could be, and Judd has had some family members teaching a class about photography for the ladies who escaped, or it really is creating a community around what we're doing.
There are steps that people can take to make a difference, and all of these steps collectively together make a large impact. But then at the same time, this isn't an event. This isn't just a one-time, let's get together and do something, but a meaningful effort to be connected to community and to make a difference and to come alongside various organizations. So I would love if you could share, you've mentioned Next Step Ministries a couple of times, and I understand that there's multiple organizations that this initiative seeks to support through fundraising. And I'm now learning through also offering, in-kind services and supports. Can you tell me about those organizations?
Sure. So early on, once we established as a group, the Freedom 8848 leadership team, so to speak, one of the things we found in some of our research was that it's really important not just to address the restoration phase of human trafficking, but also to address the rescue phase, even though that word sometimes doesn't lend itself well to adults. But with children, children do need to be rescued out of these situations. You can't avoid that word with children. So our rescue partner is International Justice Mission. So Next Step Ministries would be our restoration partner, because they work with women who are leaving sexual exploitation on the streets of Calgary or anywhere else close by. And so International Justice Mission being the ones that more specialize in helping children out of trafficking situations around the world. And then if we're not looking at restoration or rescue, then what is really important is to try and cut this off from the beginning or in the prevention work. So we work with an organization called Brave Education for Trafficking Prevention, and they are our third partner in that prevention world. And they go and do work in schools with parents, with teachers, and help equip those students with the knowledge of how to avoid getting caught up in this illegal industry right from early on in child development and early age appropriate curriculum. So
I love that you have a multi-pronged approach to even your fundraising strategy and coming alongside these organizations. And for viewers and listeners who want to learn more about Brave specifically, we actually got to have an interview with the founder of that organization, and our whole conversation is about prevention education. So make sure you go and check that out. My next question for you is in regards to your future hopes and dreams for this event. What do you hope Freedom 8848 becomes, and what do you kind of have planned in the months ahead?
Sure. So we are imagining a groundswell of people standing together moving mountains for justice. That is our vision. So a groundswell is a huge nautical term of a wave of people coming and experiencing what Mike described in terms of community involvement in this event / not event. And so if that means that somebody really doesn't want to get involved in the frontline work, and it's not for everyone, but they would love to take on a challenge and have conversations and fundraise and go after climbing the equivalent of Everest, then we want you to come. Like if you're sitting there in Ontario or Quebec or Nova Scotia and you're thinking, wow, that would be a really incredible opportunity to do something big for the organizations that are in the front lines, we want you to come. And we are going to engage people with those partners in webinars and training hikes and other initiatives so that as people are doing their fundraising, they understand firsthand who the partners are and the work that they're doing.
That's so incredible. And I think that the ways that you're equipping people with knowledge to be able to have those conversations in addition to the fundraising is really commendable. Is there anything else the both of you would like to share as it relates to all of these different aspects of Freedom 8848?
I think ultimately what we'd like people to know is that when ordinary people get together with a central vision, with a hope that's bigger than themselves, that they can accomplish extraordinary things. And it is definitely within the Fourth Musketeer values to call ordinary people to dream big and to ask big questions and to take the responsibility of seeing peace and hope and joy come to their community and their direct sphere of influence. And so I think for me is to say to not get stuck. And there's lots to see and lots to hear that's not right, but there's a lot of good people out there that are trying to make a difference and to just jump in and help. And if enough of us do that, we'll be in a better place, and our kids will be in a better place in the future.
Well, Judd and Mike, it has been such a pleasure to talk with both of you today and to learn about this amazing initiative that you've started based on a dream and then working with others to make a big impact to empower organizations that are on the front lines, that are doing prevention education through fundraising, but also equipping more Canadians to be able to speak about this issue to their community members. If you're listening today and joining us and you're in a situation of danger, please call 911. If you're looking for information and supports related to human trafficking, you can call the Human Trafficking Hotline that's available 24/7 at 1-833-900-1010. Again, that's 1-833-900-1010. If you're interested in learning more about Freedom 8848 and getting involved in climbing mountains in the future in order to make an impact for human trafficking, please check out their website that's on the screen or look in the description below. Thanks so much for joining us on Freedom Fighters Code Gray, and we hope to catch you next time.